Hello Laziali all over the world, welcome to another special episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, with me as always Alasdair McKenzie. We have to talk about Monza Lazio, even though I have really, I would love to talk about something else, to be honest with you. Maybe Inter Sassuolo would be something nicer to talk about. But before we start talking about Lazio and our recent performance, a big shout out to Eka Baron. I hope I pronounced it well. Keep it up, boy, and thanks for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you. Alasdair, Monza Lazio, where do we start?
Well, maybe we start with the fact that the last couple of weeks you've been pretty happy to be recording podcasts on Sundays. You've been playing early. You're like, come on, I want to do the podcast earlier this week. Let's do it. And then this week I hear nothing from you, and then just podcast on Monday.
Well,
so you're definitely not as eager to talk about this game as you have been in the last couple of weeks.
Well, it was impossible for me to record it yesterday as I had the confirmation of my latest of Claudio. So I was really, really, really busy Sunday. But didn't like to. I mean, I don't know what you were thinking after the Vecino goal, but I was convinced that even playing badly, we would manage to win this game.
Well, this is the thing, right? And let me anticipate you and get in there before you. Because, yes, I did say last week that this is one of the easiest games that is left in the Serie A calendar. But to be honest, after what we saw on Saturday, I kind of stand by that, because Lazio played terribly and were 2 minutes away from winning this game. So that kind of backs me up in a weird way. I know it's not the result we wanted, but to play that badly and come that close to winning maybe tells you a bit about Monza as well. But, I mean, I think it's been widely regarded, reported, and talked about as the worst Lazio performance under Igor Tudor. And yeah, quite a few talking points around it, none of them particularly positive, apart from the fact that I guess it wasn't a defeat, which is something on a weekend where a lot of teams have been drawing instead of winning.
Yes. Shall we start from the starting 11? I mean, big surprise, Hisai playing as central defender and Zaccagni playing in the midfield like Isaacsen did against Verona 7 days ago. Huge surprise, especially Hisai, I would say. I don't understand why Hisai started. I mean, Casale was a disaster. He came in later and he proved that he doesn't deserve to start, but play Marusic in that position, right? Why Hisai?
Because he's just, like we were talking about before, he's trying everything, isn't he? I mean, I think that's ultimately what it is. In this end of the season, he's been managing to get decent results while experimenting a bit with this squad, trying everyone out, seeing what they can do. Well, not everyone. We can maybe get onto that later. But probably thinking Hisai, who's spent his entire career as a fullback, can probably adapt more easily to step inside to a back three than some other players. But yeah, I guess Marusic was the one we were expecting, given that he'd dropped back into that role the week before. Then again, I think he sees Marusic as being really important in that wing back role, because he's the key really between the two transitions, between the defensive phase and the attacking phase, and the way that the formation develops and changes as Lazio attack. Marusic is the key, the guy kind of going between the lines, and the guy who probably has been one of Lazio's best players in this period under Tudor, playing in that role. So maybe he saw him as too valuable to move out of wing back, and then once you look at the rest of the squad, there's basically no one else. So
great discussion, even what happened with Mattia Zaccagni, right? Not only where he started playing, but he's been subbed after, 35 minutes. He got a yellow card, stupid yellow card. He made another couple of risky challenges, but take him off before the end of the first half. That was, I don't think even Inzaghi did something like that in the past, to be honest with you. But I want to ask you not only what do you make about that substitution, but why bring in Casale and not, for example, Lazzari or Pellegrini?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a big kind of style approach change, isn't it? Because then you end up with Huzai and Marisic as your wing backs, which is very different to what he's been doing up until now. Is essentially having is kind of imbalanced with one more attacking player and one more defensive player. With the substitution, to be honest, I don't think a first half substitution is that crazy and is going to be seen as that crazy in the era of 5 substitutes. Because if you can make 5 changes, the need for doing everything after 60 minutes is gone. It's obviously more what that says to the player, what that says publicly, and the reaction that you might get for making a move like that, which is seen to be a little bit cruel. But Zaccagni can't defend Vittorio. This is essentially what the whole problem boils down to: is should he be playing in that position in the first place? Because as a wing back, you're going to have to be doing work in both phases, and Zaccagni can't defend. Whether it's not tracking back or following markers to win headers, or whether it's making rash challenges, he probably would have got sent off if he'd stayed there for that much longer. So I don't know. I'm not like. I'm not going to massively criticize Tudor for that, because you can kind of see logically how he ends up thinking it's the best thing to do.
I tweeted, I think 2 days ago, it's better to play with 10 men rather than 11 with Casale.
So your beef with this is more about the fact that he brought on Casale rather than the fact that he took off Zaccagni.
Well, the other funny thing, and you didn't mention, is that you take off Zaccagni because he's on a yellow card. Casale came in, and after 5 minutes, he get a yellow card. So, it's pretty much useless what you did, right? I was thinking, honestly, now he's going to sub Casale at the beginning of the second half because he's on a yellow card and he's a defender. So there's a higher risk that he does take another yellow card.
I think 5 minutes is generous. I think it was even faster.
Yeah,
it's true. So Nicola Casale is kind of an interesting one because he obviously had a bad season with Sarri, lost his place in the team, and having been this kind of rock in the heart of defense last season, where helping, with this partnership with Romagnoli and helping the team have this incredible defensive record, he really looked very promising as a quite young player. And had a terrible season under Sarri. Once Tudor came in, I think the first couple of games he was looking pretty encouraging, to be honest. So it seemed to suit him a bit more, this style and so on. But recent performance is not great. I mean, do you think this is at a point now? I mean, maybe a stupid question given what you've just said, but do you think his time is going to be up at the end of the season?
Well, it looks to me that, under Sarri, he was already the second option. So I guess if Sarri would have stayed, he would have left. But even with Tudor now, we are seeing more and more games where he doesn't start. And when he does against Verona, he's been subbed, and Tudor prefers to put Marusic central defender rather than keep playing with Casale. So I think this tells you a lot about the player. My biggest concern, my biggest question, Alasdair, was last year a fluke? And this is the real Casale we are seeing now, or the other way around? Because last year, let's not forget, Casale was called by the national team. And we could say pretty much the same thing about Alessio Romagnoli, because he's not playing well at all. And this already happened with under Sarri. So, I don't know. We have a lot of question marks there. And I think this is the first brace Juric score after, 10 years, something like that. So, and again, the second goal, Casale, it's embarrassing. But even Romagnoli misses the ball on the second goal. And in the first one, again, Juric is free to score untouched again. So very poor defending from us.
Yeah, and I don't know, was it a one-off? I find it hard to call last season a one-off because of how consistent it was.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a sudden burst of form that helped Lazio climb the table. It was a club record number of clean sheets. Was it 21, 22?
Yeah.
And that's not a fluke. You can't be that consistent over the course of the season without finding, I guess, a level of confidence perhaps that would have helped. The more they succeeded defensively, the more they would have felt strong together, strong individually. But yeah, I mean, it's the same players more or less. Providel's been a big loss, but Mandas has done well stepping in. And yeah, I guess the change of formation for me was always going to lead to more goals being conceded, because from that first game against Juve, even though we won that match, I remember saying there was so much space and opportunity for them if they were willing to have taken it. And because they were Allegri's Juve, they didn't. But you'll always get chances against Lazio in the way they're playing at the moment. And the hope is more that you end up scoring more goals by the end in a high-scoring match than that you're grinding out results. I do realize we just won 1-0 last week, but even that game, there were chances.
I mean, the most disappointing thing, and we talked about it already in the last podcast, right? This is an offensive mind type of team, and Tudor understands that, and is playing a very offensive mind football. The concerning thing is, against Monza, we played 10 minutes, and then it was it. We didn't create a single chance. Di Gregorio didn't make a good save after the one he did when we scored. So that's concerning. And going back to the manager, because we started with Tudor, even the substitution didn't make sense. You take off Luis Alberto and Kamada together, I think you take off the light from the team. Those are your top quality players, and you bring in Vecino and Cataldi, who again didn't play very well. And it's not only who you're taking off, it's who you're bringing in. What happened to Rovella? With Sarri, he was playing every single game. Now he's behind Vecino and Cataldi. And it's really hard to believe that this Rovella is worse than the Cataldi we saw Saturday, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Rovella, I read this morning, has played 23 minutes under Tudor since he's returned from injury. I think a lot of people are finding that a really perplexing one, because Isaacson, for example, is a player who's gone in and out of the team all season and who's still trying to find his best role and find a good run of form. I would still like to see a bit more of Isaacson than we have been in the last few weeks, but Rovella feels like he doesn't really need as much development, or there's not as much confusion about what his role is or what he offers. I think he's a lot further down that road than Isaacson. And for him to not even be getting seen as a rotation option, it's perplexing. I mean, do you have any answer to that? I mean, I just can't really work out why he's not seeing him. I know he said he's not big enough. He needs to put on more muscle, but come on, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I can understand that you say, hey, Guendouzi and Kamada are playing well, so you cannot think I can start you instead of one of these two players. But definitely, if you take them off, then Rovella should be the first option coming in, right? This doesn't make sense. And the other thing concerning is, you were mentioning Isaacson. You take off Felipe Anderson, you bring in Pedro. And this is something you did pretty much every single game since Tudor came back. I mean, Pedro is 34, and we see that he's struggling. He's doing everything as usual, but I thought in that moment you needed energy. You needed someone who could finish the game. The pace of Isaacson with Monza pushing, it could be a game changer. So I don't understand why you bring in Pedro instead of Isaacson as well.
I guess this is ultimately the thing that's confusing me, is that Tudor seems to be at the same time making decisions that are based on the future and trying players out in new positions, rotating his squad quite a lot to see what most of these players can offer looking ahead, while at the same time giving a lot of time to players who definitely aren't part of that future, whether it's, like you say, Pedro being the first option off the bench, or whether it's Felipe Anderson starting every game still, or there's a bit of indecision about what are we doing in this end to the season? Are we looking ahead to next one, or are we trying everything to finish this one the best? And I don't know. It seems the selection and substitutions, it is quite hard to work out. Yeah, which one it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Felipe Anderson is definitely not staying. So why is he starting? I thought this is the reason. The reason is because we are trying to achieve the Champions League qualification this season, winning all the games. But we failed against Monza. That was such a bad performance. Don't understand. I mean, these players should be focusing in trying to finishing as good as well as possible this terrible season. And I had the impression at a certain time it was Monza fighting for something, and Lazio didn't have nothing to ask for the season, which it's completely the opposite.
Yeah, they're bang down in mid-table. They're well safe from relegation, but they're too far off the European spots to really be hoping for that. I mean, it's like I was saying last week in that doomed prediction, it is a kind of dreamy fixture to get at this time of the season, and now we're left with a position where we've got Empoli and Sassuolo either side of Inter, and Empoli and Sassuolo are fighting for their lives. That's I mean, they are down at that end of the table because they're some of the weakest teams in the league this season, but they are going to be as motivated as teams come at the moment. I guess maybe if we're looking for one positive with that fixture list, it's that Sassuolo just went and beat Inter. So maybe they're taking their eye off the ball a little bit. But even if they are, the talent in that team would always make that a difficult game.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about Sassuolo Inter because I thought it was embarrassing to see Inter unbeaten and then go lose so badly against Sassuolo. But going back to Lazio, finally we saw. Were you surprised to see Ciro starting? And what's your take on Ciro's performance?
Well, again, yeah, a little bit, just because it's the same thing I was just saying. It's like, okay, I think he's kind of decided that Tati's his man now, and he needs to lean on him to the end of the season and see if he's got what it takes to lead this team next year. And then he changes his mind, and Ciro's back in the side. I thought Ciro played pretty well. I mean, obviously, he got his first goal in, I think, 3 months, and it was a nice little finish. I thought he started the game pretty well. He looked like he had a weight was lifted a bit. I think maybe he was well rested, obviously, having not played as much recently, but he was all kind of smiles and looked very relaxed, and I thought he played pretty well. So that was definitely positive. Seeing Ciro score again, it's something we've been talking about, I don't know, so many months now, Vittorio. The number 9's failing to score, but now we've actually, if you look at it on paper, had a decent little period here where Tati's managed to get a few, and Ciro's now got one. So that is one positive, I guess.
Can I say, after what Tudor said against after Lazio Verona, I wasn't surprised to see Ciro starting, because when they asked, is Castellanos your starting player for next year, he said, well, I don't know. So that was a clear message that he's not convinced by Castellanos. So
Depends
I thought,
if you sign me someone else or not.
yeah, well, maybe he gave Immobile another opportunity. Yeah, I thought Ciro played well, but in the second half, I thought he didn't have enough energy to continue. But Tati Castellanos came in and pretty much, except a fight with Izzo that was useless, he didn't do pretty much nothing. So,
do you think he's a better starter than substitute?
I don't know, because when he came in against Frosinone, he scored 2 goals. So I don't know. It's concerning. Don't know what to expect. Again, Monza was a team that was coming in the last 5 games, didn't win a single game, and conceded a lot. So I thought, Lazio should have been able to score more than 2 goals. We didn't shot on target in the second half, pretty much. So that's something that really concerned me. And again, Tati Castellanos didn't create nothing. And we were lucky that Vecino was close there, because otherwise, if we were relying on Tati Castellanos, we would never have scored.
Yeah, and the Vecino goal was a gift, really, wasn't it? I mean,
incredible.
Yeah, pretty lucky to get that. I saw that that's 5 for the season now for Vecino.
Yes.
Which kind of surprised me a little bit. I was like, oh, that's not bad, actually. That's probably more than as many as Tati, I think. But yeah, I mean, the reason I asked about the Tati Ciro thing is I feel like Ciro's definitely got a more instinctive eye for goal and where to be, getting the right place at the right time. His finishing's better, even though it hasn't been brilliant this season. Whereas Tati, I feel like it links up with the team pretty well in a way that Ciro can't necessarily for 60 minutes consistently anymore. So I don't know if that is the way around that he's viewing it. But yeah, I mean, there has to be a change. I mean, there's been a lot of talk this week about Giovanni Simeone again, and the hunt for the new striker, and that being his top choice because they work together at Verona. And I know you've got your doubts about that. We don't need to go into a deep dive on the Mercato yet, but it does sound like it's definitely something that they're thinking about, at least, which is a relief, because it's not always convincing that Lazio are thinking about a transfer window before it opens.
Well, you think they are thinking. They said at the moment we are not discussing about transfer market. But to be honest with you, seeing the last performance, I thought the priority should be 2 central defenders.
Yeah.
Right? Because even 3, thinking how badly Casale is playing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, because I've been saying this ever since we appointed him. We just don't have the team to play with 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs. We just don't have the players. But I guess the weird thing is that Pellegrini and Lazzari are 2 wing backs who just aren't being used at all. And are 2 wing backs who are probably better suited to playing as wing backs instead of full backs than some of the guys who have been there, but they're not getting a look in. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer, because this end to the season has been a bit bizarre selection wise.
Taking the tweet of Stephen Moore that I find very interesting, how do you explain that Pellegrini played just 11 minutes since Tudor came in? I mean, yes, we're not talking about Paolo Maldini, but this is not Real Madrid, right? This Lazio team has proved weaknesses, and I don't understand. Rovella only 23. How do you explain this? I mean, you mentioned that you think that Tudor is doing experiment, right? Why doesn't he test this type of players as well? Why he's testing only Pedro, Isai, and so on?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm confused about, because he is trying out a lot of different things, but at the same time, he's not. he's giving a lot of different players opportunities, and he's putting a lot of players into unfamiliar roles, but then he's not doing the obvious almost. I mean, Pellegrini, we were having the same discussion about when Sarri was the coach, though. So I don't know what's going on there. He's just not convincing anyone this season that he is worth playing. And I don't know, he's never been incredible for Lazio. I don't think we've ever seen him since he came on loan last January and thought, this guy is the future, and he's a game changer of a player. But he's also never been someone who looks out of his depth, who's really let us down hugely. And so, yeah, it's more just while you're rotating the squad and you're looking for answers and you're trying to find trying to find basically who will fit into this team next season. It's just a bit bizarre because if they're not going to use Lazzari and not going to use Pellegrini, it just means there's more names being added to what's needed for this summer. And yeah, again, I'm trying to avoid going down that road, but we don't trust the club to do this much work in this summer.
No, not only Alasdair, but let's not forget that Rovella and Pellegrini have just signed with Lazio. So it's not that you can think, well, we're selling Rovella this summer, we are sending away Pellegrini this summer. It's different talking about Lazzari because obviously he hasn't been brought in this summer. He's not young as Rovella and Pellegrini. So you could think, well, maybe we can sell Lazzari or he's not going to be part of a plan next season going forward. But I cannot believe that Isaacsen signed this summer, Rovella and Pellegrini as well, are players that the team is thinking to sell this summer, even because Pellegrini is still on loan. So, this from different point of view doesn't make sense at all. So this is the most confusing thing. Talking about Pellegrini, I think he never played 3 games in a row, started 3 games in a row. So this is strange. It's true he's injury-prone player. He often get injured, but I mean now he's fit and he. Honestly, when I saw Zaccagni coming off, I thought, well, you can bring in Pellegrini and you can still be offensive, right? We talked about Pellegrini and Lazzari being very offensive-minded players. So you still be offensive with Pellegrini played on one side and Marusic on the other. So, yeah, it would be interesting if Tudor came out and say, hey, Pellegrini is not playing because I think he's rubbish or because he has to leave the club. Like that, I don't understand, honestly.
Has he been asked about it? I don't think I've seen it.
He's been asked about it, and he said he's been injured, and then the other players starting have been playing well, so he has to wait. Honestly, I don't think they've been playing that well, right? Isaacsen starting against Verona, then it's Zaccagni, so he's rotating, but not Pellegrini.
Well, yeah, I think it's all pointing towards the fact that he's not a part of his plans. If he's not going to be tried by now, especially in a season where Tudor is trying everything, I just can't see that happening. But you never know, because I think we are being, led to believe that every starting 11 we see might have at least one wild card selection in it. So we can only see, and there's 3 games to go now. It is still open. I think that the top 5 ship might have sailed, or it's certainly leaving the port very quickly.
Yeah.
But top 6 would still be very impressive, I think. Well, not very impressive, but it would still be a good outcome given where we were, I think.
Alasdair, you know how many times Lazio was leading a game and finished without winning it this season?
Oh, God. No, I don't know if I want to know.
7 times. 7 times. We wasted 18 points. And the most annoying thing is that it's not that we were leading against Inter and then they won. We were leading against Lecce and we lost. We were leading against Salernitana and we lost. The only team from the left side of the table that we were leading and we lost was Bologna and Fiorentina. We been leading against Monza twice and we drew. Verona, Salernitana, Lecce. I mean, this is embarrassing. It's not that they were better team than us. Simply we stopped playing.
Yeah, when you put it like that, you put it in perspective, it is kind of amazing that Lazio are still in a position to get top 6, to kind of qualify for Europa League even, and really just have the collapse of other teams, particularly Fiorentina and Napoli, who were right up there for a while. Yeah. Really got that to thank for being in this position. And let's not forget, top 6, there is still an outside chance of that being Champions League. I don't know where that would stand in terms of your shirt buying bet you've made with a listener, but it's slightly different. But no, I mean, I think we need to probably just give up on that and hope we see something better from this team before the end of the season.
I mean, it would be really important to not to win on Sunday, because it's going to be a big celebration. I don't know if everybody's aware. It's going to be the anniversary of the first Scudetto, 15 years. So should be a big party. Let's hope that the team doesn't waste it, doesn't ruin it with a terrible performance, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if we've talked about the shirt yet, have we? Probably not. But yeah, good job on that regard from the club. I think very nice shirt. I don't know why it's being brought out so late. I don't see why can't that just be the shirt for the season? It seems a bit bizarre that it's going to be used for like 2 games.
No, 1 game, only that one. Yeah,
it's not even going to be used for the Sassuolo game.
No, only for the Empoli game. It doesn't. I don't like this type of things, right? I thought it's a nice shirt. You should play it for the rest of the season, or maybe next season. Instead, it's going to be used for just 1 game. It's amazing shirt, but I don't know how many Lazio fan will buy it, right? It's like last year, right? For the 10-year anniversary of the Coppa Italia final. That shirt was used just in 1 game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's happening more and more where clubs are just trying to find a way of monetizing it. Because if you think about it, there are probably few items in the world that are more overpriced than a football shirt. They are ridiculously expensive for what they are. So they must make a lot of money out of it. And by the end of a season, second half of the season, no one's really going to be buying that season's shirt anymore. So from their perspective, I think it's probably just a very clever business decision. Find an anniversary every year. I mean, Napoli have taken that to another level. But I guess that's because they've got Empoli Armani doing their shirts, who aren't exactly a kit maker, and then they come into that world and they're like, what do you mean we can only do 2 shirts a year? So yeah, the Halloween shirt and all the other kind of special editions, the Rudolph, the Red-Nosed Reindeer shirt and all this stuff. So I don't know, I think it's going to happen more and more probably.
Yeah, the Napoli thing is embarrassing. I think that's a little bit too much, but at least they're playing with that shirt sometimes, right? This one is going to be one-off. So amazing shirt. I think it's still available on the shop, but you should at least finish the season with that. And by the way, Alex, talking about shirts, Bayern Munich announced the new shirt today. We still have no idea when the Lazio one is going to be announced, right? It's going to be July, I think, as usual. Alasdair, are you still with us? No, I don't think so.
You've frozen for me there. Sorry.
Okay, I was talking.
I got you back.
Okay, I was saying
I'm sure
the new Lazio shirt.
Yeah.
When do you think it's going to be out, the new Lazio shirt?
Well, once we've made all our new signings before Auronso starts, everything happens perfectly in time before Auronso, so we can rely on that. We'll have 8 new players and a new shirt by then.
8? Wow, that would be astonishing. Lazio signing 8 new players. It would be surprising. Anyway. Do you blame more the players than Tudor for the draw in Monza?
Probably. I mean, I think it's a bit of both. I think it was probably his worst game tactically, and in terms of selection, substitutions, I don't think he impacted the game very well. But then again, the guys on the pitch, that's a better group of players than the one they were up against. I mean, Monza completely ran that game. Carboni looked like Roberto Baggio. Just effortlessly gliding around the pitch. But I mean,
He
Juric,
said-
I was worried when they were doing the the Serie A anthem before the game, and all the teams are lined up, and then they go and shake hands, and you see Patrick shaking hands with Juric. You're like, oh my god, he's about 2 feet taller than Patrick is. So I was worried about Juric because he's an absolute monster. I mean, obviously he's not particularly prolific as a striker, but yeah, that was an issue. So yeah, I mean, look, it's not the end of the world. It's a draw that was very nearly a win. So if you're going to play that badly, at least get something out of it. But certainly, like you say, the home game against Empoli is going to be massive because of the anniversary and the opportunity. So the lunch match slot can always be a bit difficult. I think those games are generally a bit crap, to be honest. Yeah. It can be very sleepy. So I think hopefully we see them start fast and not let that game drift into being a bit of a kind of battle.
Alasdair, before we wrap it up, Colpani has been linked to Lazio in the last couple of weeks or so. You saw it on Saturday. What impression give you the player? Do you think it's as good?
I like him, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's had a really good season. I'm not watching Monza every week, but from what I've seen from him, I think he looks really good. Like, very technical player, good attacking instincts. Yeah, and he's already been called up to the Italy national team. I think there's a lot of potential there. I mean, I think Lazio won't be the only teams who've spotted him. So yeah, the price tag to actually bring him in would be quite big, I think. And like we're saying, when we're looking around the team for holes to be filled, obviously Anderson's spot will have to be taken by someone. But then again, the defensive side of this team is probably going to be the priority. So I don't know if they're going to spend that much.
Well, we're going to give him Akpa Pro in exchange. And so it should be, Akpa plus 2 million euros, right?
Yeah, fair deal. Fair deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe send Casale over as well.
Or Kamenovic, Let's not forget that we still have Kamenovic.
Andre Anderson.
Yeah. I think lately he hasn't been even called for the games, Andre Anderson, anymore.
Shocking. What a waste of talent.
Yeah. Very talented player. But, the head is everything now in modern football. Well, Alasdair, let's not drift away. Lazio Empoli next Sunday, lunch match, 50-year anniversary of the first Scudetto. So it's going to be a big party, hopefully. And we'll be back Monday again, hoping to talk about something different than a game so bad like Monza Lazio. Thanks, Alasdair, for joining me. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And remember, you can rate and review the podcast wherever you listen in. And if you want to support us, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at just $2 a month. Bye, guys. See you next Monday.